Hello and welcome to Common Ground, an inside look at Suffolk County. I'm your host, Sheriff Steve Tompkins. Now today we're going to do part education, part legislation. And so we're going to begin with the new president of Roxbury Community College, Dr. Valerie Roberson, and we're going to talk to her about the things that are going on at the school. I mean, most of you know some of the trials and difficulties that the school went through in the last year or so, but my understanding is the school is coming out on the other side smelling like roses and looking really good. And Valerie is really, I'm sure she wouldn't want me to say it, in large part, in large measure, working with the Board of Trustees responsible for that. So without any further ado, Dr. Roberson, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
So now, how long have you been at RCC?
I've been here since July of this past summer. And
so, but how long does it feel like you've been here? No, that's just a trick question. Where were you prior to RCC?
I spent my career in Illinois, and I've been in community colleges for about 28 years.
Okay.
Various colleges in Chicago, throughout the state, suburbs, Chicago.
Explain to the audience the difference between how community colleges resonate with students and with communities versus four-year institutions. What's the difference?
Sometimes I think that the community colleges get a bad rap. They are seen as secondary or less than. But the truth of it is that you can get the same education for your first 2 years of college at a community college that you can in a university. And so the classes really must be equivalent, and they will transfer in most instances to four-year universities, and even that includes when a student takes a college course while they're still in high school. And so all of those courses will transfer.
Now, community colleges, correct me if I'm wrong, the tuition for community colleges is a lot less than four-year schools?
Significantly less.
Why is that? I mean, if it's basically the same education, why is there a big price difference?
Well, I think that a university, some of the things that are included in tuition is the cost of that university doing research, for the faculty to be involved in publishing and really adding to their field of study, whereas a community college is focused on teaching. That's what our faculty do. And so they spend more time in the classroom, they spend more time with students doing outside projects and working with us to have a really strong curriculum. And so that enables us to really just charge for the cost of instruction.
There's been a lot of conversation recently about community colleges actually being also training centers for young folks and adults that are coming through. Talk to us about, community colleges as training centers, and what is the difference between a training center and just going forward to get an academic education?
I think that training is one of our major functions as a community college. We work on transfer, and then second to that would be training for careers. The work really involves a closer match to the exact skills that are necessary in order for an individual to do that job. Whereas a liberal arts education is training you to be a good citizen and a broader set of skills and understanding. But the training is more focused towards the competencies that you need to be successful within that career. And if we're doing a good job, and I think that over time that line between training and education is blurring, because you can't find employers that will say, I don't need good communication skills, I don't need good analytic skills. And so even within training, we're doing more to help individuals to be broader skilled. And so from our perspective, the training programs are a bit more targeted, but they're certainly helping people to be good employees in every sense of the word.
So talk to me about RCC's curriculum. What is the school known for? What is the strengths of the school academically?
We're known for healthcare, and we're surrounded by hospitals and agencies that deal with patient care, and that's one of our strengths. Many students come hoping to get into our nursing program or radiography program, but one of the things that I've been looking at is how we can expand those programs. Some of the programs that we're thinking about is as the healthcare environment changes, there is actually a position patient care coordinator that we're looking at developing a curriculum so that people will be able to assist individuals in the community, connect to healthcare, understand how to apply their benefits, and really be a liaison to them as they coordinate their services. Another one that we're looking at is physical therapy. And there are quite a few hospitals in our area that really rely on physical therapy technicians, and they would be able to work with an aging population. And so what we want to do at Roxbury is to make sure that we are connecting students to the greatest need of the community. We don't want people to be prepared for jobs and then no jobs available.
So let me ask you, do you have any emphasis on medical technology? Specifically, my understanding is that a lot of medical records are now being shifted over to a digital or an electronic database versus hard copy versus paper. Do you teach anything like that?
We do. We have that program. We also have biotechnology. Those are the individuals that work in the lab behind the scenes. That's one of our most popular programs. And we're one of the few community colleges in the state that actually offers students an internship. So we've already connected those students who are studying that field to internships with companies throughout the Boston area.
I think, internships, it's funny, when I remember applying to college, I'm a Boston College graduate, but I had looked at Northeastern, and Northeastern has a co-op program where you go to school for 5 years, but I think a year and a half of that, you're actually doing co-ops or interning. And people that I've talked to that have gone through that process feel more enriched after they're done with school because they actually do have on-the-job training, so to speak. So is that something like what you're doing there when you talk about internships, getting people really in the job, getting them into the labor force so that they really understand the full breadth and scope of the job?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think about our nursing program where from the very first nursing class, you take a clinical as a requirement. And that's so important because, first of all, when you think about nursing, it's the practice of nursing. It is a practice skill, and they need to have that practice in actually working with individuals that are ill. And so what happens often in our nursing program is they take that first clinical and they decide, I'm in the wrong career. This is not going to work for me.
Oh, okay.
And so that exposure is, you learn as much from a negative experience as you do from a positive experience. And that helps that student to make a better choice. And so then they can go into something like the medical records or biotech and be behind the scenes and apply those same skills that they've learned for nursing.
So can you really build a nurse in 2 years, though, at a community college? Or is it a handoff? Students go through your program for 2 years and then, say, go to a UMass Boston that I understand has a great nursing program also. Is that how it works?
Well, you can, in many instances, be employed as an RN from an associate's degree program. However, as hospitals want to increase their quality, there is a movement towards more bachelor's prepared nurses. And so we urge our students, and in fact we have some scholarship programs where some hospitals have said, we want your graduates so much so that we're willing to pay for them to take that second set of course, 2 years of college, get their bachelor's degree, and promise them a job at the end.
That's incredible.
Isn't it?
That is incredible. Now, you're right, you are surrounded, or Roxbury Community College is surrounded by a number of teaching hospitals and other types of healthcare community hospitals, so on and so forth. Do you have relationships with the teaching hospitals and others where, in fact, you get some of the students either jobs when they graduate or the internships there, like, say, a Demick Center or Whittier and that sort of thing?
Yes. We really need to have relationships with all of our surrounding hospitals and healthcare facilities. And so typically, I mentioned in nursing, a student has to take clinicals all the way through every semester that they're enrolled for those 2 years that they're here. And so we have clinical arrangements, we have arrangements for internships, and we have opportunities for students to be referred for employment.
Talk to me about vocational education. What do you think about the the pluses of that, when I grew up in New York City, we actually used to have high schools that was dedicated to voc ed. Over the years, that seems to have gone away, but now that seems to be coming back. And in a moment, I want to ask you about Roxmap, a program that RCC is working with in conjunction with Madison Park High School. But first and foremost, what's your thoughts on vocational education?
Well, you know, I don't think that a lot of students come to higher education without the thought of what am I going to do with that experience.
Right.
And so while it may not be labeled vocational education, even if you're going to law school, it's a vocation. And so it takes you longer to get there. And I think that for me, you know, all students should be thinking about what are they going to do with their college education, right, and where do I need to stop? You need to consider how education is going to add to you as an individual outside of employment as well. But certainly the primary reason I believe that most people come to college is to think about how can I get a job?
Yeah.
How can I support myself?
So tell us about Roxmap. What is that program all about?
Roxmap is really an opportunity for students at the high school level to first identify their career pathway and then hopefully get a leg up on that. And we started with a group of students that were enrolled in healthcare and allied health programs. And we are looking at how we can allow those students to take college courses while they're still enrolled in high school, okay, and to have exposure to the field. And just as we've been talking about the strength and the great experience that is for an individual to actually have an opportunity to be exposed to the career while they're still employed. We've had numerous companies to volunteer to have summer enrichment programs for the students of Roxmap, so they will be able to take not just academic programs in the summer, but we want them to have an internship in an occupation. And in some cases, it may not be just exposure to one area. Like we're looking at construction trades just as an example. Okay. And I think that high school students are unlikely to come through and say, I absolutely want to be a plumber.
Okay.
But they might say, I'm good with my hands and I like being building things and being in that process. And so we want to expose them maybe a week in a construction company, a week in an architectural firm, cool, to understand, you know, the difference between, you know, being a construction engineer versus the laborers, and really to be able to know what all those jobs pay, right, what they do, how much education you need in order to get into those positions, and then be able to make a good choice and know by the time they finish the Roxmap program, this is the job that I'm going for. That's a very not only involved, but I think it's a wonderful way to look at education and have alternate education tracks, you know, for kids and young adults to take advantage of. And frankly, the last time I had a plumber at my house, it cost a nice penny. Absolutely. You know, I mean, you can take care of yourself very well. And that's what I meant by vocational education or the trades when you talk about plumbing, carpentry, landscaping, custodial maintenance, some of these things. I mean, it may not be sitting with a textbook in the traditional sense of the understanding, but you can actually come out and take care of yourself and take care of your family very handsomely. Absolutely. You know, being in one of those areas. So now let's talk about the school itself. Roxbury Community College, right on Blue Hill Avenue, I believe is a jewel, you know, and it's sitting right in the middle of a lot of revitalization, going all the way up Blue Hill Avenue, going from Dudley all the way up into Mattapan Square in the next couple of years. I think it's going to be vastly different 3 years, 4 years from now. What does that mean to the school insofar as your outreach is concerned, and how you get students attracted to the school to take their courses there? Well, you know, first of all, when you think about Roxbury Community College, the middle name is community. And I really consider most of my job to be community outreach. We need to be connected to the employers because they're the ones that tell us what curriculum we need to pursue, what programs are going to be most viable in terms of jobs, and even to the specifics of what particular skills an employee is going to need in that occupation. We need to be connected to our churches and civic organizations because that's where a lot of people in the community really get their entree into education. And I have to understand the population and understand what's important to them. And so I really need to be out in the community, and then we can talk about, okay, now how do you get involved in education? Yeah. When I'm involved in the community, that also tells me a bit about programming, what things that, you know, just ordinary citizens want to learn about, because another part of our mission is lifelong learning and providing opportunities for lifelong learning. And so it might be in the form of a play, it might be a guest speaker. There's so many things that we can do to help the community improve and individuals to reach their full potential.
So you're an ambassador for the school. Does that translate into a higher enrollment of students once you're out and about, you're letting folks get to know you, what your priorities are, finding out what the community and the business community and the clergy and others want to see offered at the school? Do you think that could or would or will, frankly, translate into more students coming to Roxbury Community College?
I think it absolutely will. It's been my experience that that's been a great strategy, that, you know, community colleges don't have to do the same level of marketing that a university might need to do, especially if we have the relationships that are needed. And I found by working with the high school counselors, they're the ones that really help students make decisions about where to go to school. And by spending time and helping them to understand the programs that we have available, I really believe that we can change our enrollment pattern. I don't think that people in the community are aware of all the fabulous programs that I've found since I've been there. Just like I mentioned, the biotech. That is a really great opportunity for a high-wage job, high prestige, and it really is the basis for so many other professions that an individual can be employed in. And the one thing about getting an associate's degree is that it allows you to enter the labor market faster, and then you can always add to it, and you can come back and then get that bachelor's degree at a later point. And that's what many individuals will do. But I think that by strengthening our programs and having that relationship with the community, getting out to the churches and the civic organizations, I think that that's a wonderful way for people to be introduced to the college, and it will definitely have an impact on enrollment.
So you leave the Midwest and you come out to Massachusetts and you find yourself in this bastion of higher learning. There are so many schools here. Talk to me about the competitive landscape between schools, not just the community college schools, but all of the surrounding schools. I'm curious as to, as an educator, how that resonates with you.
Well, the one thing is that, fortunately for us in Boston, there's actually only one other community college. And the community colleges, and especially public community colleges, have an advantage of having the state support. That's another reason why we don't have to charge the same level of tuition, because we get a measure of support already from the legislature. And so that's our real competition. And as far as I can see, there's enough for both Bunker Hill and Roxbury to be successful. So I don't have to necessarily compete in the way that I would have in Chicago, where when I was president before, there were 7 city colleges of Chicago.
Wow. Okay.
And so there was very fierce
now that's
competition.
A Donnybrook. That's a fight there for dollars.
Oh yeah, absolutely, for resources and for talent in terms of instructors. The one thing that helps, having so many universities in the Boston landscape, all of those are resources for instructors for our college. And so that's a real plus as far as us being able to be competitive. And you will find that many of our instructors teach at our college and at another university within the city. And again, same class, different price.
So now, since you brought up Bunker Hill, you know, so let's put this to rest real quickly, because prior to your arrival here, there was a lot of conversation about the merging of the 2 schools. Is that going to happen?
No, I've had assurances from the governor himself that is not the intent. That was a question that I asked even before I interviewed, because I saw that press, and I know that there is a strong commitment. You know, Roxbury has been in the community for 40 years, and from what I hear, it'll be there for another 40 years.
Well, that's good, because folks were really concerned about whether or not the two schools are going to merge. What would that mean for this community that's fought so hard to, first and foremost, 40, 45 years ago to get the school in and of itself established in this community. And they definitely did not want to hear anything about, two schools merging. So that's good that Bunker Hill does what they do and RCC does what they do. Now, talk to me about once you got here, what did you find? Did you have to turn the ship around a lot? Did you just have to move it slightly to get it, going in the direction that you're accustomed to having, running, you've run, you've been at different community colleges in a leadership capacity. Was there a lot of work to do? Did you really have to roll up your sleeves to turn things around?
Oh yeah, and I expected that. I knew that the school had challenges, that there are some procedures that we really need to get back on track with. And, right from the very first day, I was involved in that process, and then still there's a lot of work that's yet to be done. But the thing that is so heartening and that encouraged me to come was the level of support. And I mentioned, having some assurance from the governor, but I've also worked with the Secretary of Education, the Commissioner of Higher Education. So much support. Very supportive board of trustees, brand new chair, people that have served in this community for many years. And I can't tell you how many times that people have said to me they're glad that I'm here, and so I get a lot of support from the outside as well. That makes a big difference to the success of a college, and especially one that is there to serve the community. To know that the community supports it, that's half the battle.
So quickly, you mentioned a new board chair. Gerald Shatavian is your board chair, the gentleman, CEO who established Year Up, and a lot of folks are familiar with Year Up. Talk to us about Gerald. I know him. He's a real good guy, real sharp guy, smart, very dedicated to what he does. How has he been a help to you, along with the rest of the board, but how has he been a help to you in this kind of partnership, board chair, president of the university?
Well, I'll compare it to other boards that I've worked with. The one thing Gerald and the entire board understands is what it takes for a student to be successful. And they understand that it's not just about the student's intellect and what goes on in the classroom. For many of our students, they are juggling having children and families. Our average age is 29, so they may be working as well as going to school. And even beyond that, they may have challenges in terms of their own health of their family members. And those challenges really can make or break a student. And that's one thing about Gerald. He understands the whole student. Because of the work with Year Up, that's what has re-engaged that population of students. And to have that understanding from the beginning, in many instances I've had to really help the board to understand these are the challenges that our students are dealing with. And he's just understood that from the onset. Yeah,
he's a great guy. So listen, we have about a minute left. If folks want more information about the school, where can they go? What's your website address? How do they get in contact?
It's www.rcc. I'm not going to be able to say it.
We'll put up a log.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
We'll make sure we get the address.
Okay, please do.
But just let me say, on behalf of someone who works in the law enforcement community, it is so good to have you here, no doubt, because we'd rather have students and young folks and adults, frankly, with you versus being with us. And so I applaud you. I applaud your efforts. And if there's anything that you ever need from us, don't hesitate to call.
I certainly appreciate it, and I'm glad to be here.
Excellent.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. All right, folks, we're going to go to a break, and on the other side, we've got Senator Anthony Petruccelli here, and he's going to talk to us about the legislative side of what goes on here in Boston and in the Commonwealth. So please do stay tuned.